based on the story by Gaston Leroux and illustrated by Victor Tavers. Now, this book is obviously a really short, really simple book for young readers. It says, "The Phantom of the Opera, deep below the Paris Opera House, lurks a secret. Who is the mysterious phantom who haunts the stars of the stage?" The Phantom of the Opera is in the Series 2 of Usborne Young Reading, which combines good stories with easy reading text. Usborne Young Reading has been developed in consultation with Alison Kelly, principal lecturer at the University of Roehampton. Series 1 is for readers who have just started reading alone. Series 2 are for readers who are growing in confidence. Series 3 is for readers who are ready for longer stories. Now, it does list a price of £4.99 here, but that is not what I ended up paying. I'm in Canada, so ended up paying in dollars for this, but I haven't seen a lot of people talking about this book. It is a children's book, but I think it's an interesting read, an interesting adaptation of The Phantom of the Opera. I did a tour a while back of my Phantom of the Opera collection, which I'll try to remember to link in the card if you're interested. Now, it doesn't say on the front, but it does here. It says is Phantom of the Opera by Gaston Leroux and retold by Kate Knighton. Illustrated by Victor Tavers and reading consultation there. So although it is a short book, it does have chapters. And it says this book is set in Paris, France, and some of the characters use French words. Mademoiselle means miss, and monsieur means sir. Now let's start with chapter 1. The Paris Opera House. The Phantom of the Opera isn't just another ghost story. The Phantom really existed, secretly roaming the grand halls of the Paris Opera House. You can see him right there, in an interesting black and white cape, with a little black hat on as well. And he has a sword at his side. Interesting. The thing that interests me is this book also has speech bubbles. The air in the opera house was humming with excitement. It was the first night under new management. Voices were warming up with high trills. Tra-la-la-la. And stage hands were milling around looking for props. With the confused stage hand. And a diva with a little puppy there. The star of the show, Carlotta, stomped around complaining. "I said red grapes, you fool. How can I be expected to sing?" she wailed, "to no one in particular, when my throat hurts from all the smoke in this horrible city." Down the corridor from Carlotta, dancers fussed and fiddled with their costumes. But in one dressing room, the evening's performance was the last thing anyone was thinking about. "I heard the ghost has different heads that he changes as he pleases," said one of the dancers. "I've heard he has no nose," cried another, whose own nose was widely admired. "I thought he was a skeleton." I see all of them getting ready to go. "You're all wrong," said a third dancer smugly. I've seen the phantom with my very own eyes. The others turned to stare at her. He has one head, and you could mistake him for a gentleman in his long black cloak and fine hat, but I don't know about his nose because his face was covered with a mask. A mask? The girls cried. The dancer paused dramatically. They say the phantom's face is so horrific and so frightening, it would make a grown man weep. Ah! Screamed the girls. Enough of that nonsense, interrupted Madame G, who was in charge of the show. We have a crisis. Carlotta is refusing to sing. The girls began to whisper amongst themselves. Go on. They dragged a shy girl named Christine over to Madame G. Christine can do it. But she doesn't know the part, cried Madame. I do, said Christine softly. I sing it every night after the show. Madame looked her up and down and sighed. What choice do I have? Well, get into costume. Go. Chapter 2. A Surprising Voice. The audience waited eagerly in their red velvet seats. They gazed up at the huge glass chandelier suspended from the painted ceiling. Slowly, the lights dimmed. The curtains went up and the cast swarmed onto the vast stage. Their voices filled the air like a chorus of angels, and their bright costumes glittered as they danced. When Christine walked on, the stage became dark and silent. A single light shone on her. She opened her mouth and sang from her heart. It was the sweetest, most beautiful sound. When she finished, there was silence for a moment, before loud applause erupted. The noise rang dizzily in Christine's ears, and she fainted. The audience watched in silence as Christine's limp body was picked up and carried off stage. She was placed in a chair in her dressing room. Madame G thrust the smelling salts under her nose, and she blinked open her eyes. What happened? My dear, you are magnificent, said Madame G, fanning her with a handkerchief. You have a visitor. He's a count, she whispered excitedly before rushing out. A handsome young man came into the room. Mademoiselle, he said, tipping his hat. Count, do excuse me, Christine said, trying to stand up. No, please rest, said the Count. You had quite a turn. I just came to say, he went on, I'm a huge fan of the opera, and I thought you were wonderful. You should sing every night. Christine blushed. I was just standing in for Carlotta. You're a million times better than her, he declared. Anyway, I'd better go. Good night. The Count shut the door behind him and leaned against it for a moment. He could hear a deep male voice coming from inside the room. But there was no one else there, he mumbled. He had an ear to the door when a couple of dancers came by, so he quickly walked away. Chapter 3. The Phantom's Demands. What is the meaning of this? The new manager of the opera house waved a piece of paper at Madame G. I demand the sum of 20,000 francs per month. P.S. Carlotta sings like a toad. I want to hear Christine sing every night, or else. P. It's the Phantom, she said nervously. I tell the girls he isn't real, but the truth is, I've worked here for 20 years, and we've always given in to him. She shuddered. If we don't, he'll make big trouble. Phantom, door swung open and a stagehand burst in. "It's Pico. He's been taken." Pico was the manager's beloved pet dog. "My little Pico. What? How?" spluttered the manager. "I heard Pico barking and saw a man in a cloak in the shadows." Madam G shivered. "It's the Phantom. Mark my words, manager. Pay up quickly or something dreadful will happen." Chapter 4. The Angel of Music. The Count was hovering by Christine's dressing room. He had heard about the Phantom and was worried about her, especially after hearing the strange voice in her room the week before. "Count!" Christine almost walked into him as she came out. She looked around nervously and blocked his view into her room. "Can I help you?" she asked with a bright smile. "I just wanted to make sure you were all right after fainting last week." He paused as he heard the same deep voice coming from her room. "Who was that?" "Oh, no one," Christine trilled. "I'm fine, thank you. But I must dash." And she shut the door in his face. The Count was more puzzled than ever, so he hid behind some costumes and decided to wait. After a few minutes, Christine came out in a hooded cloak. She rushed down the corridor and out of the opera house. The Count followed her along the dark, lamplit streets until they reached a small, gloomy graveyard. The moonlight cast creepy shadows on the ancient stone graves. The Count watched as Christine knelt by a grave. The church bells began to chime midnight. Sad violin music floated on the air. Christine swayed and sang along to the music as if in a trance. The Count was captivated, until he felt a hand on his shoulder that chilled him to the bone. He looked into a pair of blood-red eyes and let out a scream. "Ah, the eyes so red," the Count spluttered. And we have a half mask of the Phantom, rather decorated, with red eyes. As he spoke, the figure vanished. "Count, what eyes? What are you talking about?" asked Christine, running over to him. "And the violin. Did you hear the violin?" said the Count, dazed. Christine looked afraid. "Yes, I did," she admitted, "but I don't know who's playing. I come here to sing at my father's grave. Before he died, he told me an angel of music would visit me." "And has one?" The Count opened his eyes wide. "Yes," says Christine. She looks quite frightened. "He comes to the opera house," she said. "He taught me everything I know about singing, but I've never seen him." So the voice I heard. Yes, that was him. He says I'll be the most famous singer in Paris. Will you keep it a secret? The Count looked serious. "If you want me to," he said. "Now, let me walk you back. It's late." Chapter 5. An Unforgettable Performance. The next morning was bright and sunny. Carlotta was lying in bed eating chocolate truffles when her maid came in with a letter. "What's this?" Carlotta demanded, her mouth full of chocolate. "If you appear on stage tonight, you must prepare for a misfortune worse than death." "It's a threat. Someone is telling me not to sing. How dare they? Get my things. I'm going straight to the manager." In less than an hour, Carlotta was in the manager's office. "Monsieur!" she shrieked as she slammed down the letter. He read it quickly and went pale. "It's the Phantom," he muttered. "Phantom?" Carlotta's ears pricked up. "I'm not afraid of a ghost. I will sing tonight." That night, the whole cast felt uneasy. but Carlotta wasn't the least bit worried. "Phantom, pah!" she declared. She fluffed up her costume and marched on stage. Carlotta lifted her arms up, opened her mouth wide, but all that came out was a long, harsh croak. The audience gasped. Carlotta continued to croak like a toad, and the audience began to laugh. The manager, who was looking on in disbelief, heard a chilling voice in his ear. "Carlotta sings tonight to bring the house down." "I beg your pardon." The manager spun around, but the figure behind him had gone. At that moment, a deafening crack shook the hall. Everyone looked up. The glass chandelier, which sparkled above the audience, was coming loose. Plaster fell from the ceiling in great chunks, and the huge light swung dangerously. The audience began to scream and run from their seats. The singers on stage watched, horrified. With an almighty crash, the chandelier fell, narrowly missing Carlotta. Then all of the lights went out, and a terrifying, ghoulish laugh echoed around the opera house. We see the Phantom again here, holding some rope behind the stage. Chapter 6. Underground Secrets. Backstage, Christine stared at the madness and terror as she watched a black cloak whirl around her, and she was swept away. She tried to scream for help, but her cries were muffled beneath the cloak. Blindly, she stumbled down a flight of stairs and along a maze of twisty paths. The air around her became colder and damper as she struggled to get free. We have that maze of stairs that almost look as though they go sideways, down, and down, and down. Finally, her captor released his grip. She opened her eyes and blinked. Underneath the opera house was another world. She saw a misty lake with stony tunnels leading off in different directions. Huge candles flickered and wax dripped down the dark, dank walls. "Don't be afraid, Christine," said a deep, melodic voice. "You," Christine gasped, spinning around. "My angel of music." But he wasn't what she had imagined. She came face to face with a man in a mask. It was the Phantom of the Opera. And here we have a intricate boat, a statue. Here's the Phantom with a shocked Christine spinning around to see him. She took a step back, afraid. "Don't be scared," he said. "I'm your friend. Please trust me." He took her shaking hand and led her onto a boat which sat on the mysterious lake. The boat began to float away. Christine couldn't help but be enchanted. It's incredible. "I am the voice you hear, but I'm no angel." He turned his masked face towards the shadows. "You are. You've been so kind to me." She paused. "Why do you hide down here?" "It's safe. No one can laugh at my face." The Phantom said sadly. "What do you mean?" "I'm too ugly." "It can't be that bad. Will you show me?" Christine asked gently. "No!" shouted the Phantom, suddenly angry. "Of all people, I don't want to show you." "But you're my friend. I wouldn't turn my back on you," she insisted. "No, Christine," he said firmly. They sailed on in silence. "Did you make the chandelier fall tonight?" she asked. "Enough of your questions." He roared so loudly Christine trembled. "I'd better take you back," he said more calmly. With a sweep of his cloak, the boat changed directions. standing on it with his twirly cloak. Chapter 7. A Disappearing Act. The next day, the manager sat in his office with Madame G. "We must get this phantom. Little Pico is gone. Carlotta's left us. The opera house is falling apart." "All is not lost. Don't forget we have Christine," said Madame G. The manager scratched his chin. "You're right. There's something magical about her. Draw up a contract. Carlotta's part is hers." That afternoon, posters went up all around Paris, advertising the new star of the show. Before the show, Christine nervously paced her dressing room. It was one thing to do a single performance at the last minute, but quite another to be leading lady forever. "What if they hate me?" she thinks. But Christine was born a star. By the end of the show, she felt as if she had played the part all her life. The show was almost over when the orchestra abruptly stopped playing. The chorus stopped singing, and the dancers stopped dancing. The audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. What's going on? One person wonders. We have Christine alone in the spotlight there. Even the temperature seemed to drop. The only person who didn't stop was Christine. She continued to sing. With a crackle, the lights flashed and the stage went dark. Christine let out a scream that sent shivers down everyone's spine. The lights flared back on, lighting the stage. A trapdoor was open and Christine had vanished. "Christine!" shouted the Count from his seat in the front row. "Is this part of the show? Where did she go?" a couple people wonder. "The phantom must have taken her," he yelled. "Through that trap door. Follow me." The manager and Madame G jumped up from their seats and ran after the Count. Chapter 8. The three of them disappeared under the opera house to the phantom's secret world. They ran down the twisting tunnels until they reached the lake. "There she is." The Count pointed to Christine, who was in the boat with the phantom. Mist floated around them. "Give her back, you beast. I love her." "No," snarled the phantom. "She is mine now. Keep away." "It's for the best, Count," Christine sobbed. We see this scene below. It's interesting. It's almost as if the staircase goes down into the lake. Curious. The phantom turned to Christine. "I only wanted to be happy with a wife and a family." "But you can't," Christine insisted. "Who would love me?" he growled. "Let her go," shouted the Count. "Don't worry, Christine. I'm coming over." He began to wade into the lake. "Get back," warned the phantom. He flicked his cloak, and the water around the boat blazed into flame. "No," screamed Christine. "Leave him alone, and I'll stay with you." She reached up and kissed the phantom's cheek where it wasn't hidden by the mask. Instantly, the fire went out. The phantom fell to his knees, crying. "No one has ever kissed me, not even my own mother. You are the kindest person I've ever known." "I told you, I'm your friend," said Christine, "but you frightened me." "I'm so sorry," he sobbed. "I was just so lonely." Christine put a hand on his shoulder. They could hear the police whistles in the distance. "I must go," the phantom said. But Christine began and paused in shock. He had vanished. All that was left in the boat was the phantom's mask. The boat floated to shore. "Christine," cried the Count, helping her out. "You're safe now." They watched as the empty boat floated into the mist. The manager, Madame G, and the police looked around in bewilderment. Where's he gone? Christine clenched the mask in her hands. Goodbye, my angel of music. And then we have a little bio of Gaston Leroux, who lived from 1868 to 1927. Gaston Leroux was a French writer. He is best known for his novel, The Phantom of the Opera. There have been several different film and stage versions of the story. It isn't always clear if the Phantom is a ghost or a madman. The most famous production is Andrew Lloyd Webber's musical, which has been performed all over the world. Now, this book was first published in 2008, and is, I think, a really strangely original version of the tale. I don't think I've ever seen the whole lake catching on fire